So in addition to exercise, these are the epigenetic factors. You heard a lot about genes and DNA. Epigenetic factors are those factors above the genes that tell your genes which proteins to make, as Dr. Roizen said. So if you eat a Big Mac infused with antibiotics and hormones in a feedlot, and order of trans fatty acids on your French fries and a bottle of phosphoric acid called Coke, it's going to tell your genome to make inflammatory agents. What's the common cause of cancer, Alzheimer's, stroke, diabetes? It's inflammation. Whatever you can do to reduce inflammation, you're going to help with your longevity and your health span. The same with exercise and being careful of the water and how you drink and organic versus non-organic. And stress is neurotoxic to the brain. In contrast to a Mediterranean type diet, polyphenols, appropriate supplements, exercise, clean air, water, and a strong family unit is a very important thing. If you read Dan Buchner's book, Blue Zones, the common factor of all the centenarians that he studied is that these epigenetic factors are operant. Their diet is kind of a Mediterranean diet. They work hard. They have a clean air, clean environment, and they have strong family units for when the bottom drops out, and it always does at some point. And also they get enough sleep. So, trying to do my exercise and do the things that I know epigenetically what I'm supposed to do. I also, about 3 or 4 years ago, met Dr. Afradi, David Globig, and Amir here at the Aviv Hyperbaric Center. And I decided to get involved and learn about hyperbaric oxygen therapy. And subsequently, how I've done a lot of work with traumatic brain injuries, particularly concussions, CTE, post-concussion syndrome, and particularly in sports, but also stroke, cognitive impairment, memory impairment, long COVID, and how to enhance performance. And I'm going to share some of the thoughts on that with you. And these are the generally accepted and paid for conditions for hyperbaric oxygen use. Wounds that won't heal, in particular, are those burns, traumatic infections, gas emboli, even acute hearing loss is something that you should keep in mind. And these are generally accepted, payable, reimbursable things. Brains of the wound, the government won't cover. Insurance companies won't cover. Wounds of the brain, the government won't cover. But they will of your diabetic ulcer ready to get an amputation. So I looked into the literature a bit. And one of the things you've heard about, and many of you know, is telomeres. You heard about immunosenescence, senescent cells from Dr. Hadani and others. And they've shown in very good studies how hyperbaric oxygen increases telomere length, which is, as we age, our telomeres shorten until they finally shorten to the point where the cells are no longer functional and they become senescent. And senescent cells spew out all sorts of cytokines and cytotoxins that are deleterious to the body and brain. So they've shown that telomeres actually can be increased and elongated with hyperbaric oxygen therapy. And these are my telomeres that I underwent 60 treatments of hyperbaric oxygen. And I'll show you what I did before and after, but my telomeres were elongated by 100%. Now, you have to remember my age. 100%, the delta for me is not going to be the same as somebody 22 years of age. But regardless, it clearly is a biomarker that one can look at in terms of effectiveness. For training and performance, Amir Hadani and Dr. Afradi and others did another study. They took middle-aged athletes and they gave them hyperbaric oxygen therapy, but beforehand, they did a whole lot of biomarker studies. They did a biopsy. They put a large needle into the buttock, the gluteus maximus of these athletes, biopsied the muscle, and then looked at the muscles for mitochondria. Mitochondria are the organelles in every cell of our body that makes energy, oxygen and glucose to make ATP. And what they found was there was mitochondrial biogenesis. Mitochondria actually became more proliferative and more active, meaning more energy, more effectiveness in terms of the operations of every cell. And they also saw that not only they did evaluations looking at cognition, their energy level, and general satisfaction. And you can see the improvement before and after the use of hyperbaric oxygen in this healthy middle-aged group. And their cardiopulmonary function also significantly improved. So, is this something that elite athletes, if you get a 1 or 2% increase in your ability at a high or low level, it can be very significant. So with this kind of information, I decided to be an experiment of one. And I went to the Aviv Center for 3 months, and every day, 5 days a week, 2 hours a day, I underwent dives, as they're called, or treatments. But beforehand, I measured my brain speed, my processing power, my memory. I had brain scans, my MRI, SPECT scans that Dr. Hedani spoke about. And I also had various blood evaluations in terms of my cardiorespiratory fitness, and also did balance and flexibility tests. So I did all this before. And then post, there was clearly an improvement in recall, improvement in my executive function, planning, organizing, mild improvement in attention, and mild improvement in processing speed. And all very nice. Clearly, it wasn't worse. But again, objectively, the scans that I had afterwards, this is an MRI showing before and after in terms of blood flow to various parts of my brain. And significantly, the blood flow to those parts of my brain correlated with those parts of brain function in terms of attention, salience, and other functions that were positive. That same thing was confirmed on SPECT scan in terms of blood flow. These are two different modalities, but measure blood flow to different parts of the brain. So, the other thing that we mentioned earlier was about inflammation, the common genesis of so many of the diseases of aging. And Alzheimer's, diabetes, arthritis, all of these come from mostly, I didn't realize what Eric said, that 73% of what affects us is epigenetic or environmental, and 7%, 8% is genetic. So I measured also very specific proteins in my blood, proteomics, and at 40 dives, there was a precipitous drop in the inflammatory markers that are associated with inflammation. So again, it's not that I just feel better, but there was a major biomarker change that I couldn't control, indicating that the inflammatory process was less. And I actually published this in a peer-reviewed journal, Frontiers in Neurology, the difference between 0 and 1, and the kind of my own personal experience and the results. And the CPET is the cardiopulmonary exercise tests that were done. I got on a treadmill, breath with a mask, breathing, measuring my oxygen, anaerobic threshold and aerobic threshold, my VO2 max, and post-treatment, There was improvement in lung capacity, improvement in exercise endurance, and actually some improvement in muscle strength. And to cap it off, I actually did a triathlon before and after. And in looking at my cardiopulmonary tests, I improved by about 9% in my aerobic and anaerobic capacity. And I was able to finish the marathon, or the triathlon, by about 9 or 10% improvement in my time before and after. So I was very pleased with that. And I actually came in first in my age group. But I know this audience fact checks everything. I was the only one in my age group. And last year, I competed in the senior games in Fort Lauderdale and came in second. And the guy who won, I'm sure he lied about his age. And then again, talking about peak performance at any age, one of my fondest and greatest experiences was in August of 2022, I did the Chicago Triathlon with my daughter, who's 28 years old, for the first time, and she kicked my butt. But we both finished and had a great time, and it was a very family bonding experience.